Welcome to 3MG TV. My name's Shane, and today we're going to be talking about the EQ section of your soundboard and the other knobs that go with it.
What are we going to learn today?
Today we're covering the EQ section, but the thing to remember, the key part of all of this sound reinforcement gear is that it all functions the same. Whether you find it on your soundboard, on a piece of rack gear, or in a piece of software, all of these components that we're going to be talking about in these sound videos all function the same. It's just a matter of finding the knob or the button or the slider that you need and understanding how it technically functions. We'll do another video in the future talking about the sonic side of it, what these things sound like, but today we're just going to talk about the function. The two type of EQ profiles that we're going to talk about today are bells and shelves. So first we're going to talk about bells. Sometimes people call them a bump, but what it does is makes a little hill or valley in our EQ. Now the knobs that are going to go with this are across the top. So starting on the left, we have the level. That's going to be how tall or how deep the bump or valley is, and thereby how loud whatever frequency we have selected will be. The next knob is the frequency. That's going to slide the entire bell left and right across our EQ graph, and it's going to allow you to select what frequency you want to turn up and down with the level. Lastly is the Q knob, and the Q deals with how wide the base of the bell is going to be. Now, what you have to understand is that when you select a frequency, you don't just adjust the one frequency you select because we have this curve. The Q deals with how much of the frequencies around our peak that we're going to be adjusting. So you can make it wider or more narrow to adjust more of those nearby frequencies or less. In this example, we have a shelf. The difference between the bell and the shelf is that where the bell just made a bump that didn't affect anything to the left or the right, the shelf does. In this case, this is a high shelf, and frequencies will be raised or lowered subject to where you set the level from the point that it reaches the top of this plateau shape onward. The Q in this case will adjust the steepness of the front of the shelf, so you can decide how much you want the frequencies in front of the plateau bit to be affected. If you flip this over to the left and the shelf goes toward the left or to the lower frequencies, then it's called a low shelf. The last thing we need to get to are high and low pass filters. The purpose of these is to very drastically and completely try to take out frequencies that you just are not going to need in your output. Most of the time on your boards or on your DAWs, these are going to be a button and they'll be switchable. Sometimes there'll be a knob to adjust where the frequency is and where this thing will kind of fall off the cliff, like on the left. And we'll start with the one on the left. That's a high pass filter. Sometimes you'll see it as HPF, or you'll see it written as low cut. Now you get a bit of a confusing name like this because if it's low cut, that makes a lot of sense, but if someone calls it a high pass filter, you can get mixed up pretty easy because on the other side it's called a low pass filter. We'll get to that in a second. What you have to do is remember that a high pass filter means the high frequencies do pass the filter. Therefore, the lows are cut out by the filter. Over on the right, we have the opposite, the low pass filter, or LPF, as you'll sometimes see it called. This one you won't see quite as much on consoles, but you'll definitely have it and deal with it in your DAWs. And it works exactly the same, except the highs are cut out instead of the lows. I hope that made some sense. There's another look at the knobs and what they might be called and how they'll have things listed next to them. And you can use all of these together. You could have a high pass and a low shelf, and then a bell or two, and then a shelf and another bell, and then a low pass. So you could really dial in your inputs. Alright everybody, I hope that helped. If you have any questions, get in the comments. We're going to do some more videos covering the rest of the components. Let me know which one you'd like to see first, or if you have any questions about this one. See you next time.